welcome to EyeOpener, powered by Siemens. And now, please welcome your host, Gugan Sanger.
Like you mentioned like you said, when you get the win, right, or you get the case closed, I guess that's something like how do you feel about that? I know you automatically feel kind of like, wow, proud, because it's like you mentioned the process of it. It's so long because you've got all of these customer kind of weekly calls that take place, sometimes going to the site to actually understand the issue, and sometimes even with the issue that takes time to resolve, right? So to actually kind of have a case closed, it must be so satisfying to know that you've invested so much time and energy to help someone with an issue that they've had with their assets.
Yeah, I think there's something special, at least for me and the delivery team, of seeing customers becoming autonomous, closing their own cases, seeing the feedback, and then me being able to go in and see all the stuff going on and see them picking up the system and driving their own predictive maintenance. Being able to take the lessons that we've been able to impart them, and then they can go away and they can learn things. And then our role really switches to becoming experts, right? If a customer needs to do something very specific, they've got maybe some other assets they want to onboard and they need help with that. That's something we can reach in and help with. If they want to take their predictive maintenance strategy to the next level, that's where we can come back in and really help them flesh out the rest of the next steps.
So I know you mentioned earlier, Susan, you mentioned about this whole educational side. So I guess with the customers and for them to understand their assets and the issues, I guess they are essentially learning from you guys. So the knowledge that you're providing them, so at least when it comes to if the problem was to occur again, they've already understood that this was the trigger and this is how we fixed it and what the issue was.
I guess what I have learned from listening to others and their experience is that you have to facilitate based on who you're working with, the user, and see exactly what they need, and hopefully you'll find someone that you can talk to quite easily and they feel comfortable asking you questions, so then you can actually help them out a lot faster and easier.
No, I completely agree. And I go just touching on the whole topic of predictive maintenance, I think in general, so if you type in the word predictive maintenance on Google, you'll come up with pages and pages of content, and I think for an individual it can be so overwhelming, and I wanted to just go into the question around making the maintenance team understand that cultural kind of side of predictive maintenance and the impact, how it can actually help make it easier for them, essentially.
It's really about educating them and helping them understand their data and build up those fundamentals, and move into understanding the condition of the machine from their data, right? Getting a more holistic condition monitoring overview, which is part of why our title is Condition Monitoring Analysts, right? Because we want to look at the condition of those machines, and then taking that understanding to the next level to be able to help them understand and look at the predictive side of things, right? So this we've raised this case, it's got these details, got this condition in the machine, how long do you have left, right? How long do you have to take action? And inspiring the cultural change that comes alongside that. A lot of teams right now are probably on planned maintenance strategies, possibly even reactive maintenance strategies. And the whole idea of predictive maintenance is to try and ease those burdens, right? Those maintenance burdens, whether that's planned maintenance, where there's a very rigorous schedule, right? Every 2 weeks, there's a lot of engineering burden that goes with that. And whether we can ease that engineering burden to make them be able to do more work, right? They're able to better resource. I know that this asset doesn't need work this week, so I can go work on something else. I can do another task that's important. And then for the reactive people on the reactive plan, it's all about avoiding failures, so they don't have to deal with catastrophic issues that take a lot of time and a lot of issues, when they could, change it a week earlier to only take an hour, and then the problem never arises.
So I guess every week it's probably different, right? So a customer may need to just deal with 10 or 20 assets that week which have an issue, so I guess it helps to keep everything organized and on track. And I know you mentioned, Jack, it helps them to actually understand what the issue is and to essentially kind of better predict when something's going to go wrong or when that's going to occur.
Yeah, exactly. And part of the guidance we give it around is around things like condition indicators.
Yeah.
So for anyone who may be not aware, we might talk about two types of condition indicators or condition monitoring data.
Okay.
And there's general condition indicators which say something is wrong, but might not give you a specific. And that's all about helping customers understand, okay, it might not give you specific, but what are you trying to look for in that case? So maybe a standard example, right, is current on a motor. I know the current or the power draw on this motor is increasing, but I don't know what the issue is. I just know that there probably is an issue because this motor is drawing more and more current.
Okay.
And it's helping customers understand what they need to look at, right? So do you need to check the bearings in case they're failing?
Yeah.
Do you need to check the motor in case there's some sort of wear? Is the gearbox got some kind of tooth wear? Those kind of things.
Yeah.
We also talk about other types of condition monitoring data, which we call maybe more direct, where these are things looking at very specific failure modes of an asset. So, for example, bearings, you might take a vibration spectrum, and you might look at things like ball pass frequency, outer race frequency, those kind of things. And that's when we want to give a more direct insight, so we can actually point maintenance teams and say, this is where we think the problem is, you can go check that.
Okay.
And that gives them that ability to either be more planned or at least more focused in where they're looking to target their maintenance.
Yeah. I think it's essentially having more structure, isn't it?
Yeah.
To actually understand. So when you, like I know we're touching, so when you go to a site visit, you can actually kind of see it with your own eyes, but then at the same time you can, give them what they need to help them with any issues which may occur in the future.
I think for on my side, there's a combination of there's asset efficiency, right?
Yeah.
But there's also, maintenance efficiency. Being able to do all the work, clear your backlog is, something that's probably on a lot of people's minds, right? There might be a lot of, for example, SAP ticket notifications that are sitting there waiting to be done. But there's a constant maintenance burden that hopefully we can help ease. So then you can get to all those tasks.
No, I completely understand.
Operate your line to the best it can be, right? Make your life as easy as possible.
Yeah. Do you feel that there's any misconceptions of the Senseye app?
Yeah, I think a lot of users think that it can give quite instant answers on when a machine is going to fail, but what they need to remember is that data has to be collected beforehand, and we have to analyse that before we can decide when a failure might come about. And we also have to kind of fine tune it in a sense that sometimes we can make it a bit too sensitive. So an asset might seem like it's failing when in fact it's normal behavior. It's just that we haven't actually seen that before. And there is I think a misconception that people think it's going to be able to tell them straight away, in 6 months this is going to happen, but you can't predict. Hopefully maybe one day we might be able to do that, but right now no, I don't think so.
Yeah, I would echo the same. I think sometimes there's a preconceived notion that AI machine learning is magic, right?
Yeah.
It's going to pick out something that, a human would never be able to see. And to some degree, there are things that we can pick up. But it's not going to take in your data and instantaneously say, this machine is going to fail on this date at this time. It's one of the expectations we tend to have to set with a lot of our customers, right? Is understand what we provide, and what that system does, without and having to kind of clear those preconceived notions to make it realistic.
And also to let them know that it might actually take a different amount of time depending on what we're actually looking at. So one asset might be able to give us information quite early on, whereas something else, it might take a little bit longer.
Yeah, and I think sometimes there's also this idea that you just give Senseye the data and it spits out what you want. There is work involved, right? That's our job, and that's why we engage with maintenance teams, digital leads, etc. Because there's work involved to make sure that the system's set up in the right way to give you the best insights, reduce false positives, all of that kind of thing, and which we're there to help with, right? That's the main function of our role. But there is that work there, and it does take some investment from a team.
Yeah, no, of course. And I think when we kind of go back to data with that, I believe it's a slow burner. It takes time. You're just kind of getting to know the assets, I want to say. And with all that data kind of going through, you kind of get to a point, maybe 6 months to a year or 2 years, where you've actually, in comparison to 6 years to 2 years, you have a better understanding about what the issue is, so you can actually predict when an issue is going to occur. But I think in the first instance, I know you mentioned that it does take time, because you're just kind of getting to know the issues, the assets, what they're trying to fix. And like you mentioned, we touched on it earlier on today, and that this whole kind of focus is around communication. Mm-hmm. So without communication, it's very hard to even establish that relationship.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think we can have a project where we can't have that kind of open communication with a project, with a customer, and really,
understand,
make clear that we need to help. We need to understand their assets to some degree, mm-hmm. And we need to help them understand how the system works and how they can make best usage of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot goes into setting it all up and actually understanding what they want to look at, and nearly an important aspect is how old certain lines are. Because you always have to take that into consideration, because there's no point in looking into brand new machines, because they probably won't see any failure, and then they won't see any reason to actually use the app. So there's a lot of juggling when it comes to deciding what asset or what area of a factory to actually look into.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Please like and subscribe to our channel, and stay tuned for the next one in the series. So Jack, Susan, on our previous episode, Adam Paul asked a question for our next guest on the show, and I wanted to ask you both the question. So what was your most recent hardware product that you've purchased, and why?
If I go first, I guess.
Go ahead.
So I guess mine would probably be smartwatch.
Okay.
And I guess it's probably the same reason a lot of customers install sensors, right? I wanted to monitor myself, work out how many steps I did, a lot of heart rates, to be honest, looking at user interface, all of that kind of stuff. So that's probably my last piece of hardware.
And mine was a camera. So one of my friends had the exact same type, and I thought it was really cool.
Okay.
So I was like, I need to get this. But now I feel like I need to get a smartwatch as well, so I can monitor myself too.
Okay, that's perfect. And then I guess, so if you could ask a question to our next guest on the show, what would it be?
I'd probably go with, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I'd probably go with, what is your proudest moment recently, both inside and outside of work? So what are you really happy that you've done?
That's a good question.
That's a really great question, and thank you so much for joining me on today's episode.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
It's been great.
Thank you.
To find out more, search Senseye Predictive Maintenance.